Okay, so hey to everybody out there. I am here today with Kon from Automotive Assessment Tools. I came across his tools a couple of months ago when I was trying to find resources for a provider. I think it was the first time where I literally turned around to an RTO and went, you can buy these tools and we actually don't have to fix anything on them. They are ready to rock and roll. So I was so impressed that I thought I need to get this guy into an interview to talk to him about his process for how he develops assessment tools, and share it with as many people as possible so that we can get people developing really, really good assessment tools like Kon. So Kon, thank you so much for speaking with me today.
No problem, Lauren.
So look, just give me a start, give me a little bit of a background story. How did you get started in vet? How long have you been doing this for, and what made you start designing assessment tools?
Yeah, no, I pretty much got into training 12, 13 years ago, and the RTO that I first started at virtually had no assessments at all. And I thought it was just that place, but it wasn't. Every RTO that I sort of went to had the same problem. They just had poor assessments. There was no process to them. It made it difficult for the trainer to deliver. I felt that under the AQF requirements, each trainer was training differently, so each student got a different, perspective of the qualification. So I started writing myself, trying to put a system in place that no matter who was delivering the qualification or the unit, it can be easily followed. And that's where I got it to. I've been doing this now for, good 12 years, but the last 5 years I decided to go Australia-wide, and I've been very busy since then. So a lot of you are probably people that will be watching this use my tools correctly, or they've purchased them from another source. So that's okay. Look, at the end of the day, I wanted to get the tools out there. I wanted to get quality students coming out through the RTOs, because the one thing I noticed when I was in industry that we struggle to find quality people. So,
and you're obviously automotive is your passion. So
yes, I've been 35 years in the industry, and only the last 4 or 5 years I actually quit my job where I was full time to do this full time. I was doing it on the side, and it just got too busy. I couldn't do it. So.
And so just out of curiosity, how many RTOs are using? You've obviously got the AUR 16, you've got the AUR 20 now that you're rolling out. And I saw the list of RTOs that you had was pretty comprehensive. I mean, there's not a huge amount of RTOs delivering AUR in Australia as it is. You would have to be across the majority of them, I reckon, at this point.
There's more than half, at least. We're pushing close to 70 RTOs that are using it, not just the private, but also TAFE as well. Constantly writing for units for TAFEs here in Victoria. There's a lot of people using them, and feedback, like from yourself, what you've seen, has been positive. I attend audits too for the RTOs, and support the RTOs that do purchase my resources, to give them I'll give the ASCO auditor any feedback or the process. A lot of the RTOs that do purchase them, especially for initial audits, they bring me along just to explain how the assessment tools work. It's been a process to a point where they are now. I'm not saying they're 100% perfect, but they're close to it. So I like to think that anyway. So
talk to me, I guess. I think most of us are fairly straightforward, and a lot of people, and I mean, a lot of the tools that I look at commercially purchased, when we go to like that theory assessment side of things, I find a lot of providers have got that kind of down. It's fairly straightforward. You ask the question, here's the answer. The language around that, I mean, I think you can tell when it's not an industry person that is writing it, because the language definitely changes. It becomes that little bit more aligned with the unit of competency as opposed to the level of language. I know, like for myself, when I'm writing a unit that I'm a little bit unfamiliar with, I probably am a little bit more academic than I should be. but with practical assessments, because this is, I mean, practical assessments is where we find like 90% of the problems. I'll often refer providers and I'll be like, look, you can buy these assessment tools. The theory will be okay, but we're going to have to rewrite the practicals. So talk to me about your process of when you're looking at a unit of competency, and particularly a soft, like one of the softer units of competency, how you approach designing your practical assessments.
So from I look at the performance criteria and what's required, and obviously think back of what I've done in industry, what it relates to that. A lot of the issues that I see with other resources that have been developed in AUR, you're right, they just follow almost word for word of the performance criteria, but they don't actually put what is expected, what they're trying to say from an industry perspective. So I'll give you an example. The first one, relevant workplace documents. Well, workplace documents in the automotive industry is a job card. So it's as simple as that, but people don't write it that way. So again, it's a matter of just looking at what we used to do what we still do in the working industry, and putting the benchmarks to what ASCA are looking for, what we expect the trainer or the assessor to look for as well. So yeah, I know what you're saying. I've tried to write other units, BSB units, and that's not my forte. And I, like you said, I struggle to put an industry spin to it. So that's why I normally just stick to the AUR units, because I know what I'm writing. I can look back to what I've done in the past in the workplace. Also working for manufacturers, I put that point as across as well, what I expect from a manufacturer, or what they expect a technician to be following to repair their vehicles. So a lot of that stuff is put into the assessment as well.
And how do you find, I'm interested to know how, like, especially as an industry expert, how you find the latest training package, with the AUR training package, how are you finding that lines up to like what's actually being done in industry? Are you finding a decent alignment, or are there still a lot of things happening in there that, potentially don't happen in industry anymore?
No, there is an alignment. Some of the knowledge requirement is sometimes old school when you think it, and sometimes I struggle to find the information. Why that's in there, sometimes I'm not 100% sure. But a lot of it, especially from a practical point of view, the process that they're, from the performance criteria, what they're following or what they've asked for the RTOs or the developer to follow is virtually exactly what we want technicians to do. There's a step-by-step process, and sometimes, especially when you're trying to diagnose a vehicle, you miss one step and your whole diagnosing process is out the window. So no, it's about process, about following process. So, and that's what I try to implement in the assessments as well, especially from the practical observation.
Yeah, and I think I think you can definitely tell that certainly when I was reading your tools, that it was really focused on what do we do in the workplace? How does this look in the workplace? And then from that particular task, from there, you then linked all of the criteria into it and the benchmarks into it. But it wasn't starting with a place of, well, this is the workflow that the unit has set out, and so this is what we need to be doing. It was, this is what industry does. And then, my job as the developer is to link the unit criteria into what industry does.
Exactly.
And you can definitely tell when you're reading your tools that was it, because there was so much supporting documentation. And I've noticed that as well. Like at the moment I'm writing some leadership and development stuff, and the amount of supporting documentation I'm putting in, here's what this plan looks like, and here's what this document looks like. And I think some of yours had like 20 or 30 documents and guides and manufacturer SOPs and stuff like that you were putting into it. So I think that's definitely something that, as as an RTO, if you're going to be going out and buying tools, that's the kind of stuff that you want to be seeing, is like, not just that I'm getting the assessments, but that I'm getting some of that supporting documentation, so that when we talk about benchmarks, that's what we want to be seeing. So I'm interested to know, like, when people call you up and go, okay, you know, I'm looking for some tools, what are the things that you tell them to look for in good assessment tools?
Well, theoretically, 9 times out of 10, they've come to me because they've either failed an audit using inadequate tools or tools that they've made themselves. Look, I tell them mainly from a textbook point of view. So I try not to write an information book, because theoretically there's textbooks out there that do the job thoroughly. There's also the workshop manuals, which again, part of the criteria they're supposed to be using. But when I speak to them about the assessments, once I've given them a sample, it's 9 times out of 10. It's, yeah, okay, let's do the purchase. I've had RTOs talk to me about other providers of the tools, and they've obviously failed the audit because of that, because there's just not met the criteria. And that's where a lot of RTOs still are in, I guess, you know, in the 12 package, where between the 12 and 16 package, only one word changed, and the change was from may to must. So now everything must be covered in the training unit descriptor, where in the past you can almost pick what you wanted to cover. So all that grey areas disappeared. But a lot of RTOs are still using some of the old tools in those packages, and they've been slow to update. A lot of the feedback I get sometimes is that there's too much content in the assessment tools. But at the end of the day, I develop it to the criteria.
Making me tick more than 4 boxes. Come on, dude.
That's how it is sometimes.
Stuff about writing in comments.
I've had one trainer say to me, if it's more than 20 questions, the students lose their concentration. And I pretty much have to tell them those days are long gone. So, look, I've gone, and like yourself, I go to many audits. Just this year alone, I've gone to probably, I mean, mine, they're all Zoom, but it would have been a good 10 audits this year. Some are re-registration, some are initial audits. And, the tools have never been questioned in regards to what they're covering. When I look back to, say, 5 years ago when I did my version 1s, like you said at the start, the question bank was fine. The observation was an area that I needed to work on, to where they are now. And it's never been questioned in the last 2 years at audits, which would have been well over 20 audits now, all over the country.
And so, I'm interested to know how have you found the regulator over that period of time, because they would obviously now start to have like a familiarity with you. How have you found the regulator? Have you seen their approach change over the last 2 years? What do you find? Do you find them friendly enough to work with?
Yeah, they are. Yeah, there was a couple of auditors at this probably 3 years ago, which were stone face. Didn't really give you too much information until you got your report, which was annoying. But now they're more friendly. They pretty much highlight during the audit if there's any concerns, and even getting reports these days. Not that it's been an issue for my tools, but when I speak to the RTO, they give a detailed description of where the tools or where the RTO has gone wrong. So no, the actual auditors they're trying to fix their problems. And look, everyone knows there's RTOs out there that are trying to do the right thing, and there's RTOs out there that are not trying to do the right thing. So, and ASQA knows that as well. So, that's why sometimes they can be cruel into some RTOs. I think they have a perspective that all RTOs sometimes are not trying to do the right thing, but that's not true. There are RTOs out there that are trying to do the right thing.
Yeah, I actually think the majority are trying to do the right thing. It's just knowing what the right thing is they get a little bit confused on that. And as soon as an RTO gets told that they've done the right thing, they just assume that that's the process that they need to then stick with. And so I often will go into an RTO and they'll be like, but we got told at audit 7 years ago that this was compliant. I'm like, it probably was compliant 7 years ago, but like, our perspective on that has changed, and the regulator's perspective on that has changed, and the standards have been updated since then. And right,
no, you're right there.
let's see how it happened since then. So.
Yeah, exactly. Every year they bring out new changes to their requirements, and the RTO has got to stay on top of that. It's no different from us being consultants or developers. We've got to make sure that what we're putting together is right at that time, not 5 years ago. So
I'm interested to know then what are the units that you enjoy the most, and what are the units that you find the most difficult to write in your training package?
Well, electrical's never been my strongest side of the industry, so I do struggle sometimes with electrical qualifications. I'm very fortunate. I have a strong network of friends who are in the industry, and they will range from having strong areas of the industry, so I can always lean on them. If I'm not sure about something, I'll speak to them. I'll give them a call, and they'll show me the right path to follow, or give me the information that I need. I have people, because from my experience, I've worked in product development, and I've made a lot of good friends in manufacturing from that area, and that's a lot of that area is the cutting edge, leading the industry. So you're not going to get any information better than that. So it does help. So that's why I stick to automotive. People have asked me about doing other qualifications. Yeah, I can, but it's going to take me longer to do. Mind you, I've only just scratched the surface of AUR. Prior to this update package, I had done over 120 units, and now with this new package, I'm up to the 70 mark, and I've still got probably another 30 to 40 units to develop or update for the old package.
And I'm curious, what's the kind of, for writing like a full unit of competency, what is the kind of time frame? Like, how long does it take you to write all of those, or like to create all of those documents for a full unit?
It varies depending on the information that I have available. So I'm doing one at the moment, and that's taken me almost a week, where one I did previously, which was a difficult unit, it took me 3 to 4 weeks. It's just trying to locate the information, because when I write a question, it's not just I can make a question up, no dramas, but can that student find the answer, either being in the textbook, or you touch it on the in the PowerPoint. So it's got to be there for the student to find. I prefer then not to use the internet, because the information sometimes can be varied. There's
a lot of YouTube people that think they know how to fix cars.
Exactly. So I mean, look, there are some good YouTube videos, and when I do my PowerPoints, if I can't find anything that relates to something, I try to find a video that may have the answer. That it won't be, Joe's Garages. It'll be a quality industry type video that someone's put together that relates to that product or that component. But yeah, it can be difficult sometimes depending on the unit.
Yes, yeah, definitely. Sorry, I guess my last question is from a validation perspective, do you get involved in your clients, like in the guys that use your tools, do you get involved in their validations of like the completed student assessments, or how do you, what sort of validation process do you put in place for your tools?
So I do, obviously, when I develop the units, I have the mapping document already in my layout, and as I'm pretty much going through the list of knowledge requirements, I look at it to make sure that I've put a question relating to that topic. I guess the validation, I know the validation can be difficult for some. When I look at it from my perspective, my industry experience, that I've covered everything. When I sit with some RTOs, not often, a lot of the RTOs are happy to do their own validation. I do get feedback sometimes that if there's a mistake, but usually a spelling mistake, or I've added the same question twice. I've come across that a couple of times. But it's a matter of the tools are pretty good. And again, like I said, when you go through an audit, I know the auditors are not industry experts, and they sometimes struggle to comprehend AUR. I do find that
quite a technical. Yeah, it's one of the more technical packages. So you wouldn't have a huge amount of auditors that would have great coverage.
No. But mind you, a lot of them, especially in South Australia, I've come across auditors there where they've used industry experts. So they're starting to do that, obviously, to assist them. But look, validation, I just try to cover everything. So even like the observation, when I'm writing something there, I look at what the requirements asking, and I make sure that I've covered it, the wording that obviously is understood by the assessor, from an industry perspective, not from from a lawyer's perspective or the training package perspective. It's been deciphered to that it can be understood. It's like when I write a logbook for some RTOs for work placement. The wording on that logbook has to be understood by the workplace supervisor, not by an ASQA auditor. So they've got to be able to understand what they expect that student to be doing in their workplace. Not by an assessor either, because these guys in the workplace don't have their TAE. They own a workshop, they repair vehicles. So when it comes to following something on a document, they need to understand it. So
that's a really good, I think that's a good point of difference though, is saying, again, most RTO, like most providers will come from the perspective of, well, look, we'll provide you with a base level of tools and then it's up to you to contextualize them for industry, et cetera, et cetera. Your position is, I'm going to write these tools so that I know that your guys out in industry are going to read them. And if ASQA has a problem interpreting them, then I'm going to step in and help you interpret for ASQA. I think I like that. I really like that. It's very different. It's very different than what a lot of assessment tool developers, than their position would be.
Exactly, that's what it's got to be. When I develop a tool, the assessor's got to understand it. And if he can't understand it, well, the student's not going to understand it. And there's no way industry's going to understand it. So it's got to be clear and precise of what I expect them to do, and not just me, but what the training package expects them to do. So yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time today. So if people are delivering automotive or thinking about delivering automotive and want to find some really good assessment tools, where can they find you at? www.autoassesstools.com is the website.
My contact details are there as well. Usually if they do a Google search, I'm pretty much at the top of the Google search, so they'll find me there as well.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much, Kon. I will hope to see you again soon, and I will be reaching out to you when we want to get our next lot of tools for my providers.
No problems at all. Thank you.
Thank you very much.